we find sometimes life can be a real challenge. Sometimes finding your place in this civilized, modern, economic, capitalist society can really throw you. It can be real difficult to find your place. The urgency. It's been a particular week for me. It's been a long time since I made any money. Real serious, deep-seated traumatic stress, anxiety, desperate tension. The only thing I can do is focus on my dogs here, which I bred and trained these dogs to be therapy dogs for people with PTSD, anxiety and depression, substance abuse issues, specifically returned soldiers. So I find myself just calming down by letting the dogs come here and be dogs and play and be dogs. You don't need to be working today, providing therapy to human beings, although that's when they thrive the most. Doesn't matter how bad things get, how desperate things get. Find yourself a creek, it's overgrown with weeds, underneath a road. Get a bit of shelter from the sun and the humidity. The dogs are the priority. The dogs are the most important thing right now. They're the most important thing anyway. That's what keeps me going. The dogs are the most important thing. Now these are earth dogs. So in this kind of environment they would be looking for foxholes, rabbit holes, badger holes, rat holes, and be wanting to engage under the ground with such creatures. That's what they're bred for. So I've taken that breeding and then I've really focused on providing therapy to human beings that might have been bred and trained to do some kind of similar job. As insane as that might be, that is also what keeps us able to enjoy such liberties. The price of liberty is eternal vigilance. So these dogs are bred to be therapy dogs for the kind of people that have suffered some kind of trauma, because they are the kind of people that keep our society safe. Are you having trouble? Are you having trouble in life? Is this world getting you down? Is this civilized, capitalist, economic society that is, by its very nature and by default, psychotic? Psychosis, consciousness looping back on itself, 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 reinforcing the ideas as it loops back on itself, back on itself, back on itself, back on itself, back on itself. So people don't feel like looking after themselves when they have that consciousness looping back on itself, back on itself, back on itself, back on itself, reinforcing ideas back on itself, back on itself, back on itself, back on itself. So I have a practice, it's called Healing Impulse. Natural therapies practice, acupuncture, massage, kinesiology, qigong, counseling, NLP, There's all kinds of other things. And then I have the Heart Dharma Foundation. Perhaps we can find ourselves in service to mankind. So I have a schedule of fees. If you got money to pay, but if you don't, treatment and support is free, and nobody is ever turned away, no matter how heinous their past may be. Are you lost? Perhaps you can find yourself in service to an animal, or find yourself in service to mankind.